razor blades.
Rise up lights, right?
Razor blades.
Yeah, but if you say rise up lights, is that the thing?
Well, the idea is that when you're like learning how to imitate an accent or do a new accent, there's like a word that you can jump to get familiar with the accent and to keep it going. So for an Australian accent, what I know is people say like razor blades in an Australian accent to get used to it, like razor blades.
Razor blades.
Razor blades.
Rise up lights.
Yeah, it wasn't
rise up lights ish.
Yeah,
rise up lights.
ish.
Yeah, I don't know what the one is for the southern accents that I enjoy so much. So I'm not really sure.
Can you do an accent?
I can, but I'm not going to because I don't want to offend any of our listeners.
But we're live on the internet. I mean, it's almost you're paying.
We are. Welcome
homage.
to theScore eSports Improv lesson number 1.
Cut them off.
Hey guys, it's September 1st. Welcome to September, everyone. Back to school season.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
It is.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm the most recently schooled person here.
You get schooled every day.
Yeah, exactly.
What's up?
Exactly.
What's up?
It's Gabriel Zolton-Johan here on the mic. Alongside me is Josh Burry.
Hello.
And behind the desk for the final time.
This is it.
True.
I'm so sad, dude.
it's a sad departure for me. This is going to be my last show. But again, everything that theScore eSports has done and done for me and in general, I'm a big supporter of this thing, and I can't wait to see you guys continue to dominate and do all your good stuff, man.
Where will I be without that? Your screwdrivers, your mics.
Without
Ryan Stratton, everyone.
Without my ranting, you might be in a better place.
And now I have to be on that side of the desk at least temporarily. So prepare for some really poorly done transitions and
we get
stuff.
more name change mess ups.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be tons of problems. Like get ready for that. If you listen on audio, you probably will not notice. I don't know. Your mixing is good too, though. I don't mean to just like. I'm not trying to neg you on the way out here. Like I'm not trying to like BM you.
As much as I want this to be about me, like I do every show when I hijack it, let's talk some esports.
All right, let's go. Well, let's start off with something more tangential, not super esports focused. We're not going to talk about a particular game here. But we are going to talk about the Olympics.
Yeah. So
lay it on me, Josh.
Yeah, in case you guys missed it, there's an interview with the South China Morning Post.
I read that every day. I didn't miss this.
Well,
interview.
it went on my radar because of the interview, I have to admit. And the International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach was talking about esports' potential future with the Olympics. This has been a topic of some interest in the esports community because the question is always, should we even care? If we do want to be part of the Olympics, what should that be like?
Yeah.
But Bach laid it on pretty clearly here that violent video games are not going to have any place at the Olympics.
Did he say violent video games or just violence in general is not accepted?
I have the quote here if you want. I'll lay it on you. Bach said, "We want to promote non-discrimination, non-violence, and peace among people."
What's non-discrimination? Hold on, sir, for a second. Non-discrimination. What does that have to do with esports?
I think that he's just espousing the general Olympic philosophy. I don't think he was claiming that like esports was discriminatory necessarily. And he said, "This doesn't match with video games, which are about violence, explosions, and killing." Okay. And there we have to draw a clear line. So that was the initial quote used in the piece.
So there's like 100 problems with the initial quote.
Yes. There are other problems with other quotes in the story as well. But this is the one that everybody latched onto because obviously a lot of the very high-profile esports titles out there right now contain some amount of violence.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, even League of Legends, it's first blood, it's kills,
your
deaths.
pentakill. Yeah, there's violence. Absolutely.
It's still okay. Yeah.
I mean, Graves,
there's explosions.
Graves shoots people on the regular for sure.
Yes. Yeah. But there's also like blue fire and dragons and stuff. It's not real life.
Still violence.
It's not fucking real life.
I mean, it would be violent if a dragon actually mauled you.
Yeah,
but that isn't something that people face routinely. So it's maybe not like an imminent danger for most people. I don't know, but
so this whole Olympic Committee thing has nothing to rival the whole like esports to be a medal event at 2022 Asian Games. Right?
No, that's different.
That's still going ahead, as we know, as
we understand.
It's unclear if this comment would affect that in any way, and I'm not sure that it will. But
I mean, let's just break down the first part of this quote here, because he's talking about non-discrimination, which, I would say does happen at the Olympics. Discrimination is pretty prominent in the Olympics.
Yeah, you're literally
not with segregation necessarily, but there's actually like some
male,
people,
female.
but also
what country are you
people
from?
are also people are constantly denied entry to like Olympic like places where the Olympics are held, right? Like great example is like Sochi, where like certain countries, certain people were not allowed to go, or like in right, and like the Qatar World Cup that's coming up. I know it's not the IOC doing it, but there's like a problem with like Israelis being able to go and things like that.
Wasn't there like an issue at the last Summer Olympics with, I think there was like a competitor from Iran in judo or taekwondo or something who refused to compete against an Israeli competitor, I believe.
There's stuff like that happens all the time. So that's thing number one that I have a problem with. Thing number two is I don't know if you're promoting nonviolence if you're saying like, point this rapier at this other person or like, skeet shooting is pretty, you're literally shooting guns the decathlon and stuff. Like this stuff has, even if it's not against a target, which again, sometimes it is in the case of like wrestling, fencing, etc. Even like the sports that we consider innocuous, like soccer, has like violent tendencies occasionally, right?
Absolutely.
Like slide tackles, metal cleats, and
rugby just got in there.
Rugby
got a blood substitution rule, which means that if you bleed, like if you use a sub, like that's it, right? Your sub's done. But if you bleed, someone can go on the field, and then you get patched up, and you're able to go back on the field. It's not to say it's not violent here at the Olympics.
Anyways, so that's part two of why the quote's ridiculous.
I just, before we move on to the rest of this quote, because there's a second quote that I think is really interesting, I think, Gabe, you kind of hit it on the head. Some of these events are a form of violence that is being practiced in a sporting way against a target. But in esports, if you're in League of Legends, isn't the other player's hero, their champion, just a target? That's
what I think.
It really is. You're not actually committing violence against that person.
Yeah, this is a really antiquated view, honestly, on video games in general, but also like esports, right? Like, this is also disingenuous talking about video games in general, saying all video games feature violence, explosions, and killing, right? Like I don't see that in my like Sudoku or brain training, like whatever shit, right? Like I don't see that in like many different kinds of games, and even some competitive games as well, honestly.
And another thing is the actual physical harm that's happening. Like, I understand you don't want esports because there's killing on there. Hold on, what about the bobsled and luge when people are jamming down this ice like at 130 kilometers an hour and people are actually dying? Boxing, judo, like in esports, I think the counter argument is that nobody's died. Nobody's died. So like,
I don't think that makes you an Olympic sport automatically.
No.
Hey, has no one died in this? Like,
congrats, you're in.
But in terms of
basket weaving, you're in.
I'm just saying, what's the definition of violence? I understand that's like being mean to people and like whatever. Are we using it as a target, or are people actually getting hurt?
I think it's irrelevant because there's violent shit in the Olympics anyways. That's like what I don't understand.
Boxing is a sport. But you are committing violence against the other person.
Yeah.
It's not senseless violence. It's not like walking up to someone on the street and punching them. Like you're both agreeing to do this.
And that's
the agreement is you are going to punch me in the head.
That's the same with esports.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree, 100%.
I would say another argument that I've heard about this whole esports going to the Olympics is like it's not based on your physical skill, blah blah blah, whatever. Right? I get there's mechanics, there's those loose arguments, but hold on, what about the standard set by the IOC where equestrian is an Olympic sport? You're on a horse and you get a medal? What?
I think if shooting a gun at something is an Olympic sport, then I don't think esports could be excluded.
Yeah.
Because yes, of course, there are a lot of skills involved in using like a firearm in a competition, totally. But those skills aren't like it's not like you have to. I don't know. Like it's like about aiming. It's about reflexes. Like there's so many similarities there that like I don't know, and I don't think that's the argument he's making.
Yeah,
I honestly don't think. That's the argument he's making.
It's fine. I'm kind of in the boat of it's okay if it's excluded. Honestly, it'll still grow. It'll still do its own thing. But you can't have these awful reasons for excluding it. There has to be something more substantial, more tangible. The Olympics at the end of the day is a very political event, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
And if you just don't want this to be involved because it kind of muddies the politics of it, that's fine. You don't have to say that, but don't make up reasons that are contradictory to what the Olympics are already doing, right?
Yo, Gabe, hit me with this next quote, though, because...
Absolutely.
Because I think this... After you read the first quote, there's like this reaction that you have, but I think after you read the second quote, you're kind of like, oh, I see what you're actually doing. Or at least in my opinion, I have a strong opinion about what they're trying to do.
Sure. So this is Thomas Bach, IOC president, again, saying, so if ever somebody is competing at playing football virtually or playing other sports virtually, this is of high interest, presumably to the IOC.
Yeah.
We hope that then these players are really delivering sports performance. If fans at the end would even play the sports in the real world, we would even be more happy.
Motherfuckers are trying to back up the FIFA and I guess not Madden, but obviously FIFA.
Just FIFA.
Just FIFA and just soccer.
But here's the thing, right? Like they kind of betray their intentions at the end of that quote, which is that we want sports to be more popular, so maybe we'll allow esports based on sports, and that's fine. And to me, that's kind of like, that's pretty self-serving for one. Yeah. And also it shows a fundamental misunderstanding about where esports are right now, what is actually popular, and again, the whole violence thing, like it shows that they don't understand that this is a game.
I think the other thing that's kind of out of touch with this is that they're only accepting the sports that they're familiar with.
Yes, exactly.
And that completely betrays the idea of accepting new sports, which is just that they're accepting like a digitized version of shit that they already accept, which like, again, if you're trying to be kind of, the cool kid, like Olympics, like flip the chair around, like cool teacher style type authority figure, this is kind of a weird way, easy way out, a cop out, if you will, of accepting esports, right? Yeah. I think that if they're serious about bringing that esports to the Olympics, they got to cut these awful excuses out, and they have to actually take a long, hard look at, what kind of esports they're accepting, because I love soccer. I love soccer to death. I watch the World Cup constantly. I have a favorite EPL team. I like the Olympics a lot, even though Canada, aside from our women's team, which is fantastic, is not the greatest at soccer. I'll watch the Olympics, and I'll watch Olympic soccer because I love the sport. I will not watch FIFA, like Olympic FIFA, because I'm already watching Olympic soccer, right? Like it's absolutely absurd.
And we see that even with like NHL now. They've pulled out of the Olympics and they pulled out of the World Championships. But I guess you've got to pick and choose what it is that you're going to compete in. And at the Olympics, I mean, we know that they're losing more and more viewership. Esports is thriving right now and is going to do well on its own. So when it really comes down to it, I just don't care.
It'll be a business decision too, right?
So, I got a question for you guys about this. So they said, simulations of sports games. Does Rocket League make the cut? Since Rocket League is flying car soccer.
Explosions.
I know. That's where you're going. That's where you're going. You can blow up another car in Rocket League by boosting into them
and when you score a goal.
Them. Oh, and the goal kind of goes like bam, but it's like it's more of a stylized explosion. Like it's not like spectators are caught in the blast every time you score a goal.
They'll have a splash zone.
You can sit like right above the goal, and then the explosion comes out into the crowd. Yeah, that's
the real thing that I wish to have seen though is that if it went to the IOC and it was in the Olympics, I just wanted to see the scandals of drug use. That's all I wanted to see.
Oh,
the PEDs
like
and whatever that were
Adderall
using.
and-
Adderall, pot, whatever it is people are doing. I mean,
Yeah.
pot is not a PED, but it's still a banned substance.
I mean, who
I just
knows?
like to see those controversies.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't take away our snowboarding medal. Sorry, that was a Canadian Olympics joke. Sorry about that. I think we've covered that, but I guess one last thing on that I want to talk about. Oh, Gabe, you got something to...
Oh, I was just going to transition. But
Oh, no, I got one more thing. Does esports need the Olympics at all? You
No.
kind of touched on this already, Ryan.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, I again, like I said, it's thriving without the need for this international recognition. And again, honestly, the Olympics, and this is just probably my political science brain talking, is a very political event.
Yeah.
And your recognition in the Olympics isn't necessarily your recognition as a sport or competition. It's a recognition as like something that influences like geopolitics, essentially. I don't think esports needs to do that to be successful.
No, shit, no.
My thinking is this. We've had attempts at international competitions already in esports before the Olympics, and a lot of those, like those expansive tournaments with multiple games, have been kind of, I don't know if train wreck is the right word, but there have been some pretty big misses in my opinion. And I'm not talking about like when a publisher does international stuff for their own game, but like when you have try and organize like national teams, like we've had a lot of misses, and often it's not even the best players playing in them because they have jobs with actual teams making tons of money on their own. So we had like Selfless represent the United States at, I think it was WECG.
Right.
Anyways, like Selfless was a fine North American team. They definitely weren't the best North American team for Counter-Strike at that time, right? Like nobody would argue that they were the best team. They were not.
Yeah.
There's no way they were. So that to me is like, if we can't do it ourselves right now, how could we possibly believe that the IOC, which obviously does not understand esports, is going to somehow figure out how to do it properly?
I agree
There's
with
no
that.
we don't need the IOC in my opinion. I think the IOC has its own issues.
I think that's a great point too, is that if they try and do it the first time on such a big stage and it falters completely, like how does that look for the growth, not just the growth of esports generally, but like the growth of it in public consciousness? What's the impression it leaves on mainstream?
Yeah.
Like it'll be worse than it already is, honestly.
Yeah, because regardless of your opinion of sport, the Olympics are a massive cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly.
So if that's what most people know about esports and it's that bad, yeah,
and it
agree.
could be that bad.
It could be, yeah. In that
Especially if they're
hypothetical,
really
but-
flippant about
Yeah.
it, which, clearly based on these quotes, I can see them being very flippant about it.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to get that rant in. So thank you for humoring me.
Of course. One thing that will not be an Olympic sport anytime soon is PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds.
Which is defined by violence.
Yeah, basically. But it's still growing. It's growing incredibly quickly. So much so, in fact, that it's kind of, started its own esport ecosystem through a Gamescom Invitational. So Gamescom, which is a gaming event, video game industry event in Cologne, Germany, had a PUBG tournament, and it was the first ever PUBG tournament. It was $350,000 prize pool, massive for a debut tournament, and honestly not that massive for this game, which has been growing substantially. Like this game is going gangbusters all over the world.
And I just want to quickly cut in, Gabe. So if you somehow don't know what PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds
Somehow.
is, because it's not known as an esport. So if you're listening to this and you have no idea what this game is, it's literally a battle royale game. Everybody starts in a plane. You parachute into an area. You find weapons, etc.
100 people.
Yes, and you want to be the last person standing if possible. You can play the solo. You can play it in duos. You can play it in a squad of 4. Additionally, there is a first-person only duos mode, right?
Well,
just duos.
first person you can do anything, but the event just had duos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought initially when they launched first person it was just duos, but yeah. Anyways, so that's basically the game. And so, how do you turn 100 individual competitors on a giant map into an esport?
Yeah, the logistics of this, watching it was pretty interesting from The Office, just because you're kind of witnessing growing pains of something's debut tournament. I haven't seen that in a while, personally.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty interesting to watch. I thought ESL did a fairly good job with the in-person setup because they had to accommodate basically 100 people.
Yeah.
And I think they did that pretty comfortably the way that it was laid out. There didn't seem to be any problems with the in-person layout, but I do think there were problems with the event itself as consumers saw it, right?
Yeah.
Personally, but I don't know. Ryan, Josh, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, we've heard this complaint before, even about watching Overwatch. It's hard to be a spectator in these first-person shooters, especially when there's 100 people on the map. What do you tune into? Whatever. I mean, it's always nice to spectate an actual game by hopping in there and being able to like move around wherever you want. But then there's like those issues with real time and like cheating, whatever. I don't know. Maybe there's some way to figure it out in the future, and especially the way technology changes, like every year, couple years. I mean, we're seeing the emergence of these streams, these high quality H.264 streams. Who knows what's going to happen a year or two down the road? But the spectator stuff with shooting games, it just sucks.
It's tough, yeah.
I think there were lots of great moments in this tournament, and so kudos to the observers for catching those. But I also think there are issues with observing a ton of people like this, which mean that you're never going to catch everything. That's just impossible.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a thing. And also, I think that the game itself and maybe the tournament format were a little bit too passive in sometimes for actual viewing. So
Yeah, that will come in time.
I think so. I think one easy way that they could do it is give more points for kills so that you're less interested in just camping in the middle of nowhere until the circle gets so small that you're forced to confront other people. Like if kills were very desirable, I think you'd see more hunting and less kind of just dodging.
Gathering.
Obviously, you need to gather stuff. That's part of the game. You got to have the weapons.
You just gather them off the corpses of your enemies.
Yeah, exactly. You take it from people who found it first. Exactly. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, we were all a lot. I think everybody in the office was watching it at one point.
We were all. I had let people know that it was starting, and I kind of pulled it up, and I asked. We have TVs around, and I asked to pull it up on the TVs, and people like, when it got to the nitty gritty, when the circles were getting close, people really stopped and actually just was like, we're like, wait a second, like this is actually pretty interesting. But you're right, it was only when we got to that point where it was like you had to fight one another. The circle was closing to such a degree that if you didn't fight each other, you would die to the closing borders. I thought that was obviously the most intense, best parts. It emulated the experience of playing a game very well, which I think is very unique to PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. And I think it has a pretty nice future, but I agree with the early game is really bad. It's hard to watch. Something needs to be done about that. Also, the observing, I think, was pretty bad. Like, they kept jumping cameras in between, got really bad shots, didn't catch action a lot of the time until the very end.
Yeah.
And I think that contributed to having a kind of stale early game, too.
I don't blame the observers too much because this is something that I don't know if there's a lot of precedent because, it's a first-person shooter game, but it's like unlike any sort of modern esport in terms of scale. So it would be very difficult to figure this out on the first go. I feel like a lot of people were learning what was going to happen. There were definitely some decisions that were made that were not great. Like at the beginning of the first game, they followed Haunted around for like 3 minutes while he's running through a house picking up items. And it's like, okay, I know everybody is currently picking up items, but there has to be somewhere on the map, there has to be something more interesting than this, right? Like, I don't know. Like, it didn't interest me at all to watch them pick up items.
Or be in the water.
Or be in the water,
here,
which we're seeing right now. That strategy needs to be in some way modified because it's not fun to watch.
No.
But on the other hand, the moments that were good were really good. Absolutely. I thought
Pansy's commentating was fantastic.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Well. Yeah. That's so hard to be new to a game and new to like literally the first tournament and have to kind of figure out what exactly you even talk about, right? But I thought that both commentators actually did a great job.
Yeah, there were some great battles, especially in some of the first person stuff that they did. Like there were some really great shootouts. So and I was excited in the exciting moments. It's just that there were lots of moments that were not.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way the game will just end up being. You know, maybe there's not really a way to change that. In some ways, I compare it to Dota. You know, there are sections of a long Dota game that are less exciting than, but that's just the flow of the game. So maybe that's just the flow of this game. We don't really know yet. I like what I'm seeing. My only real concern outside of the viewer experience is a lot of these esports studios and stages are set up for like 12 players. So you can't, that's what I'm a little bit worried about. Like if you think about it, if you have 100 setups, those facilities, even if they can accommodate that, if you think about like the ESL studio in Burbank, even if they could accommodate that, I'm pretty sure that means there's nobody physically like nobody's in the audience. Like the audience is gone, right? Because like, how else could you make room for that?
I almost think that's okay. I almost think that's okay because we're kind of moving into this era of people deciding between like what's more important, digital viewership or in-person viewership.
True.
I really find it hard to believe a game like this can ever have meaningful in-person viewership, right?
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that just because of the scale of people involved, the amount of teams participating, like it's really hard to, you know, be a fan of a team and follow that team as they go through a single game, right?
Yeah,
I think it's difficult to really focus and hone in on spectating on one particular part of this game as opposed to other esports where it's like team versus team. I could focus on one team, I could focus on another team, I could focus even on one player within that team.
Yeah.
You can't really do that here. I think this will be a generally good spectator experience. I think as an esport it could be generally good, but I don't necessarily think it'll be good for in-person fandom kind of experience.
It's a really interesting question too, because like, you know, we saw a good amount of screen time during the Observing go to like TSM and Cloud9, these organizations that have contracted players to play for them. But I think maybe the question is like, how do you divide that screen time if you're forced to observe, and like, is there a situation where maybe you're a pretty good player making some crazy plays
and you're not being watched?
Yeah,
right?
that's an interesting question too. And you know, these orgs are sponsoring people because they want visibility. So there's sort of like an implied like, well, I'm paying these players to play this game under my organization, so they're going to be a visible part of this event, right? Yeah. So,
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is a really interesting idea too, I guess, about how that'll work out. And yeah, maybe people are just going to start doing crazy stuff. You know, like if you're not a sponsored player, maybe you're going to do some really insane stuff because people are going to be like, I want to see what this guy's doing.
Yeah, like Evermore.
Like Evermore,
who was like the only person to go to the spawn island, which is a separate island from the main island, and just run around and just keep like staying outside of the circle. Yeah, if you do crazy, there's him right there, right? If you do that, like maybe you do get those eyes on you, and I think that's pretty interesting as well.
And if you think about actual blood sport, that would also be a good strategy, right? Like if you're like a Roman gladiator, you got to be the flashy guy if you want the crowd to go for you, right? Absolutely. So I don't know, maybe we'll see. Maybe there's a guy who doesn't shoot guns. He'll run you over with a car. He'll hit you with a frying pan. But no guns. He's a gun. You just call yourself gun control, and then run around hitting people with a frying pan.
That's In Control's new handle. I have really high hopes for this. I think it's great to watch. It's great to play too, honestly. And I think both those things in combination make it a really good spectator sport.
Sweet.
So next up. We got Overwatch League news.
What?
Yeah, Ryan's excited. We had to include this because Ryan's here. Otherwise, we wouldn't have talked about it.
I would have put it in. I like Overwatch League too. Come on. So,
all right, 2-1. Fine.
So we had confirmation this week. Overwatch League Commissioner Nate Nanzer confirmed to ESPN that esports organizations that purchase Overwatch League spots are going to have to create a new geolocated brand for their team in that city spot. So if you aren't familiar with the Overwatch League, each of the spots is going to be a specific city. So, for example, Cloud9 has purchased the London, England spot. So they will be representing London. And so now we have learned it won't be the London Cloud9s or whatever. They have to make a new geolocated brand to represent London. They can't just use Cloud9. And this applies to all teams, not just Cloud9, that are in the Overwatch League. So this is an interesting discussion, honestly, because I think it brings up what are you getting for that $20 million. But sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was going to say essentially all they're doing is they're trying to take an esports organization's infrastructure and players and organization and just completely steal it, rip it off, and just say, all right, now you're part of Blizzard. You're just part of this league.
I don't know if that's exactly what they're doing.
Well, that's the way I see it. Because, I mean, if you're, again, Cloud9 fan and you want to cheer for the London Cloud9s, I mean, that's a good thing that Cloud9 has already built up. And instead of, again, representing yourself as this team, we all know secretly it's Cloud9, but what Blizzard wants to do is promote it as the Blizzard's Overwatch London, whatever they are.
Absolutely.
And they want to completely just snuff out and make sure that the Cloud9 part is not really like out there and known to the regular people. Anybody who does their education will know who owns a team and where they're from, but ultimately they want to get rid of those esports organizations and just take the already laid out infrastructure and pros and just grab them.
Yeah, I think that's a interesting point that you brought up just right before the end there, which is that the people who know will know that it's Cloud9 that owns the London spot, right? But those are the people who are already kind of deeply embedded in the community such that they would already know or that they could easily find out, right? Whereas what I think Blizzard is trying to do here is create a new organization that sidelines or shuts down an opportunity for people to leave watching Overwatch as an esport. And what I mean by that is if you're a fan of Cloud9 and you see Cloud9 as an Overwatch team, you're going to be like, oh, Cloud9, like I'm a huge fan of Cloud9. Oh, look, they do these other things, and that takes eyeballs away from Overwatch to those other things, right? Whereas if they're the London Storm, right, which is my choice for a name.
Oh, wait till you hear mine.
My serious choice for a name is London Storm.
Okay.
If they're the London Storm, you know them as the London Storm, right?
Yeah.
You don't know that the London Storm is part of any other esport. Those eyeballs will stay on Overwatch. I think it's pretty astute by Blizzard, and it's a kind of declaration by them that they're really taking this as a competitive venture against other esports by doing this.
I mean, I think like if you don't think that there's going to be like a Cloud9, a tiny Cloud9 logo somewhere on that jersey,
I don't.
I don't think so. I think there will be.
I
think there are going to be sponsors on that jersey, and in any sort of real, like in every real way, C9 is a sponsor of that team because they actually own it. So I think they're going to be.
I don't think they'll be allowed. I really
even
don't.
Just a little tiny
no,
one.
I really don't think Nate Nancer will allow that.
Nate, come on, man. Let me put the Cloud9 logo on there.
This is Jack Etienne,
I hope they do allow that, but regardless of whether or not they do, I think what this
that defeats the purpose of doing that.
It's gonna be like the 76ers have a StubHub logo on their jersey, right? It's like a little advertisement. It's gonna be like that, right? Maybe.
No, but that's still branding of their team, right? That they're not allowed to have. I really don't. They'll have StubHub, but they won't have
StubHub. Sorry, shout outs to StubHub. I don't know why.
Hey, they're not paying for this.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving them a shout out anyways. I just want to hashtag sell out. But there's no sales, so I guess I just want anyways, I think like if you think about it, this is kind of a natural evolution of publishers of these games trying to extend their reach.
Yeah.
We've seen this before. We saw this in League of Legends. Even before the franchising, there was this belief that we saw Mark Merrill, a.k.a. Tryndamere, express in his famous Reddit post about the interview that we did
with
Reginald of TSM, where he said that organizations, that maybe TSM should spend more money paying their League of Legends players, and that he implied that organizations in League of Legends are taking that money and like sneaky bandits are going elsewhere to fund other ventures.
Responsible businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's almost like income streams are a thing that exist, and you can make business plans and stuff. But so this implication further led to, we now know in the NA franchising system, you have to spend a certain amount of your profit back into League of Legends. Yeah. You can't take all the money and then go get a Vainglory team and spend all the money on Vainglory and become the Vainglory king. You can't do that because that you've agreed to not do that. And in a way, this is kind of like that, but instead of it being like a financial thing, they're saying your brand belongs to this specific brand that you're going to make belongs to this league, and it's tied to this league, and you aren't promoting Immortals, you're promoting the LA Titans or whatever they're going to be called.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's self-promotion back into their league. And Noah Winston, actually, he wanted to call his team the Los Angeles Immortals. He's gone on record to say that, and it's not good enough. It doesn't fit the bill. Now, I understand another point that he said that, in, I guess, American football, baseball, whatever, basketball, there are, sometimes the same owners will own different teams. They're all different. But it's not a brand.
That's totally different.
Totally different.
Because first off, the owners of these teams didn't start these teams, right? So like Stan Kroenke owned Arsenal, the LA Rams, but Arsenal and the LA Rams were always different entities before Stan Kroenke was even like born, right? So that doesn't, and same with like the Raptor group, James Pilata and Celtics, the Boston Celtics and AS Roma. Those are completely different. They've existed way before he did. Like these are just totally different circumstances. I think Noah is probably not perturbed, like pissed a bit that he has to do this. But didn't he
say in the video that he wasn't?
I mean, you can say that,
go on record,
right?
I mean, this is why I take that stance that Blizzard is probably, if they want to make Overwatch go to like a next level of esports, I guess what they're trying to do is smudge out all the names of this, I guess, whatever brands that are building up, and they want to be the top tier of the esport that's disseminating, players and jerseys and how it all. I guess that's their goal. I just hate to see something like an esports team that it's already a struggle to get it together, and they're trying to, get your teams together and find branding, and something with this NA LCS is with League of Legends is I think a step in the right direction. I actually see what Blizzard is doing on the opposite spectrum, where they're trying to keep those brand names at bay and make sure Blizzard and Overwatch is like the number one. I don't think it's going to get there, but I think that's their intention.
Yeah, I think. Again, I agree with Josh. This is kind of an extension of what we've seen previously from other companies. Like, he brought up a really good point about Mark Merrill's statement, but even before that, League of Legends players weren't allowed to stream games other than League of Legends because it was seen as competitive. So if Link and Scar wanted to play Hearthstone and Q, they couldn't do that because Riot wouldn't allow them.
So ridiculous.
Stuff like that. Yeah. And so I think this is also an attempt of a company trying to flex control as the commissioner, as the overarching entity, kind of before many big businesses come in and try to push their weight as well. I think that's a really interesting part of this too, is you also see the way Riot did it is they were flexing their weight against endemic organizations with not as much clout and not as much power as traditional sports organizations and people. So now that Blizzard kind of has a comfortable foundation of both, they can kind of do this and not face as much backlash, especially since the traditional sports organizations are just coming into it and just able to establish their brands.
The other thing I think we haven't mentioned yet is that one thing that this does facilitate is if you are maybe not an esports fan now, but you want to become one, you don't have to go through a lot of history about your team. When you find out Cloud9 is the London team, you don't know anything about Cloud9. Maybe you don't want to learn anything about Cloud9, but this is your team. Then maybe that connection is already sort of limited,
That's definitely a positive aspect.
Think about Na'Vi. Na'Vi currently doesn't have an Overwatch team, but just as an example, they are an organization with years and years of history. Before esports was this massive thing that it's become, they had met the premier of Ukraine, one of their old Counter-Strike teams. They have a long history behind them, And so if they were to become the Kiev team in an Overwatch League scenario, maybe you know who they are, maybe you don't. And if you don't, maybe that is less accessible than this new brand that's going to be created. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here a little bit. I think it is potentially.
I think
that's
definitely an aspect that they considered because they are creating this new thing.
Yeah.
And they want new fans, and they want, honestly, because like PUBG, Overwatch was selling like hotcakes, right? It's a very popular game, like pretty much as popular as PUBG is right now. And, you know, that's a lot of new fans. Like, not all of those people who play Overwatch are esports fans. It's a lot of new fans that you can absorb, and you can absorb under this newly established ecosystem with newly established brands.
Yeah, you want to convert casual players of the game to esports fans, which in turn will bring more
lower
people
the
to the
barrier
game.
of entry.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's a potentially good part of this. But if I had paid the money for an Overwatch League spot,
and you didn't know about this.
Yeah, I assume they knew about this ahead of that. Would be like crazy, right? Like they certainly would have had to know. That would have been part of the business pitch for sure, right? Like I don't know. That would be an incredible surprise to spring on people who are spending that much money to get into your league. So I think in the long term, this will be good. In the short term, I do think that organizations will grumble and probably have the right to grumble because they've spent years building these brands in some cases.
Yeah, endemic organizations, sports organizations.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure. So Cloud9 is holding a competition. Well, they're allowing. I don't know if it's a competition. I don't know if you get anything. Maybe you get the satisfaction, but you can actually submit your name for Cloud9's team.
I think it's just a publicity thing.
I think it's fun.
I was joking yesterday that people like on dev side here, like the developers, should just make a bot that just constantly submits our meme names over and over again.
Wow.
So like London McLondon face, or the London Fog, London Calling.
London Calling, right? Yeah, okay, I remember that.
London Big Ben Bongs.
Big Ben Bongs. But okay, yeah. So you said that your name was Storm.
I thought my serious suggestion was the London Storm for two reasons. One, it's loosely associated with Cloud9.
Clouds, okay,
right?
Gotcha.
And two, London is seen stereotypically as this like dreary, rainy place, and and you know, and as an extension, a storm is very threatening, frightening, intimidating. Mm-hmm. It's actually like a decent sports name because of that.
Okay, are you ready for mine though?
Is it serious?
That
hesitation tells me no immediately.
I think it's a serious name. I think this is a serious name. All right. So here we go. The London Rippers. Okay, now bear with me.
Like Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper, Cloud9 owner
is Jack
Etienne. All right. So you know how like Lothar did that thing for G2 where he dressed up as the samurai? Jack could dress up like Jack the Ripper.
Oh my goodness.
Get a dapper costume.
Gosh.
This would be so cool. Plus, your team could dress like a London street gang or something.
Oh man.
Yo, like think about it though. That'd be so cool. They could fog machines and stuff. Fog machines as they enter.
Ryan, I need your opinion. Which of those names would you like more? If you were,
it's got to be London Rippers.
It's clearly the Storm.
No. London Rippers will live forever, man.
2-1 this time in my favor.
The legend of Jack the Ripper in team form. Come on.
In the words of Thomas Bach, we want to promote non-discrimination, non-violence, and peace among people.
Listen, Jack the Ripper is a part of British history. You can't erase him. Okay? He lives in the nightmares of people everywhere. Maybe even you kind of take maybe living in the nightmares. You take like a little bit of Jack the Ripper, a little bit of Freddy Krueger, maybe, and you really
we're done here. Just keep submitting it. Just keep submitting it over and over again. Maybe they'll see it eventually.
I actually haven't submitted it, but if you're listening to this and you work for Cloud9, just seriously consider this. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be huge, man.
Oh man. All right. Next up, something else that's huge happening this weekend. I'm going to be there. That's why I'm dressed like this. It's the NA LCS Summer Finals.
Whoa.
It's only I'm the only one here that apparently is really excited for it.
I'm excited for you.
I'm
For
excited
me, not for it.
I'm excited for the EU finals. Honestly, I mean, right now, Immortals TSM. I just can't care, man.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I wanted to bring this up. So the first thing I want to get out there is that congratulations to both of these teams, but especially Immortals, who, this is the first time since the first split of LCS that a team not named CLG, Cloud9, or TSM has made the finals. And it's the last split of this era of the LCS. So we kind of bookended with different finalists. I think that's pretty interesting.
The winds of change.
And not to mention how Immortals finished in the spring split.
Right. Not in playoffs at all, right? The second thing I want to bring up, which, your apathy is perfect for, is should we care about this final? And there's kind of a couple reasons for this. One is that the finals generally don't really mean much beyond Worlds seeding for players. And World seeding this year, both of NA's top 2 teams will be in the same pool. They'll be in Pool 2. They'll be second seeds. So regardless of which team wins this, they'll be the same seed in the World Championship. So should we care about this final? Do you guys care about this final at all, knowing that the World Championship implications are not relevant or not there?
Just to clarify, so no matter who wins the grand final, they both go to Worlds?
Yeah. And not only that, they go to Worlds not in the same seed, like in the same...
So it literally, there's actually no impact for grand final besides winning the grand final itself.
Yeah, so I want to ask, is the prestige of winning a domestic trophy and the little extra whatever $20,000 US prize money that they get, is that something that matters to you guys as fans, or is that is it Worlds that matters, right? And therefore this is kind of irrelevant.
I find it tough with the spring and summer split. If you made it one season, maybe I care more. Where it's 2 and the summer's supposed to be more because it's like a feeder system to Worlds. Of course, the schedule, yes, the points for this, but then you get a scenario like what's happening right now with NA LCS, and we both know both these teams are going to qualify. They don't have to go through the gauntlet. So this game, it definitely means less, and I think that there's not very many scenarios where this would happen, but this is definitely a flaw in everything that could have mathematically happened, and now it just meh. I just don't care.
Right.
I think, given that it's TSM and it's Immortals, I feel like TSM as an organization with a legacy has a lot to lose potentially, just like on the history books, more than anything else, right? I mean, they've been so dominant in NA since they've started.
10 straight finals.
That's what I'm saying. So if Immortals could play spoiler, and that would be really exciting.
A little bit.
But it almost feels like it's more that TSM could lose something more than NA, because the NA outcome
anyone
is the same.
winning anything.
And that actually is fun because that's actually, in my opinion, not a great way to play a game. Mentally, to be it doesn't matter if we win or lose, but we don't want to lose because losing kind of it puts a little bit it tarnishes our legacy a little bit. That, in my opinion, is not a good mental place to be. I don't know if that's where TSM's players are,
right?
But if I were on that team, that would be in the back of my mind. We got to do this for the legacy, but ultimately we don't care about the win. We just care about not losing.
I guess. I'm still not even on that level, especially with this whole next year's NA LCS is going to be franchised. There's rumors from teams from different regions. I mean, I'm already excited about next year. I'm already talking about fantasy for next year.
You know what?
And it's another reason why I still don't care. And Worlds is coming up, and who's qualified. There's so much going on right now in the future that I, again, don't care.
Well, let me say that you guys are not alone in this, because the Boston finals have not sold out at all. In fact, scalpers are doing so poorly with the tickets that they bought for the Boston finals, assuming that it would be sold out, that they're selling the tickets for $6 now.
How much was the initial purchase price?
I believe they're
how much of a loss
$20.
are they taking? Okay, so they are taking a substantial loss then. Huh.
So I guess my curiosity then is, do people agree with you about caring about this final, or is it something deeper? Is League in trouble is there like fatigue associated with events being kind of in the same location? Because within the span of the year, we got Toronto, shout out. We got, which was an amazing final. I loved every second. I hope if Boston is half as good, I'm okay with it.
Fiddlesticks in the 6. What's up?
And we got Madison Square Garden. World
year
and Chicago, if you count Chicago too, was also like in the vicinity, right? So are we having a bit of like East Coast fatigue, or do people just like don't care about this final enough? Is there not enough big names in this final? Because TSM, C9, CLG are kind of like the big names, right?
Yeah.
When it's TSM C9, everyone pops off, right? Everyone loves it. Is it different with TSM Immortals? Like, is it all of these factors? It may not just be one of them. What do you guys think?
I've got to guess. Like what I think is that it has to do with like Mecca's, like Toronto. I think is a huge spot. LA is huge. New York is huge.
Yeah.
With a bunch of these esports, it's. I guess like people do go to watch, but the thing is you can definitely watch at home and you could see that broadcast. There's something nice about being there in person, but if it doesn't make sense to go to like a cool, awesome city, nothing against Boston. I think it's my second favorite city in the States.
After Toronto. Oh,
yeah. Second favorite city in the States, but it's still not a New York, it's not an LA, it's not a Toronto.
It's not a Chicago.
I think it has nothing to do with
it's
the
not
actual
like
players.
It's not a urban metropolis is what you're saying.
They got a beautiful aquarium though.
I've never been. I hear it's very like European, like cobblestoney. There's piers,
I love it.
Like that kind of stuff.
I love it. It's underrated, but I think it just has to do with the location, nothing to do with LCS viewership or anything like that.
I do think there's a point too, because booking my trip and stuff, like that situation. It was pretty expensive. It's a very expensive city.
It's a very expensive hotel city.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And also another aspect to it is Toronto, for all it's worth as an urban metropolis, is a Canadian urban metropolis, meaning that for American viewers who want to go, it's so much cheaper,
That's
right?
true too.
So that's kind of also what I think contributed to the bump in crowd in Toronto.
Yeah.
I'm really worried about the crowd in Boston.
Yeah.
I'll contribute as much as I can personally, but I'm a little worried about the crowd. I think the experience overall will be great. I think everything about the experience so far in the lead up to it has been great. We'll see how it goes. I'll be on the ground. I'll let you guys know on Twitter.
Woo!
I'll let you guys know on Slack. I'll let you guys know. I'll Periscope it. What do you guys want from me?
Are you going to bring the flag with you though?
Oh, the big Canadian flag?
We have. Yeah, to explain, we have a Canadian flag. A couple actually now in the office that have signatures from a variety of esports personalities.
I'll do it. Yeah.
I think you should. Yeah, you should see if you can bring it with you.
Yeah,
and,
I'll try.
Bring it back to the office.
I'll
as
just
a trophy.
wear it as like a cape through security because there's no room in my bag. But
You're definitely gonna get flagged then.
That's a good send off. All right, everyone.
I'm still excited for this final though.
Are you gonna watch it?
Yes, and I think a lot of people are gonna watch it.
I think everyone should watch it.
Yes, I think everybody should. I mean, albeit with the three things I said about why I don't give a shit about the finals, right?
You'll still watch it.
Yeah, also the fact that tickets aren't selling. I still think that there's going to be millions of people watching this thing, and I think it's going to be the highest display of skill that we've seen so far this year out of NA.
It's looking hype.
I was like, you better say in NA. If you don't say in NA, we're all going to get hate mail.
Yeah. We're all going to be leaving. But for now, we're just leaving this podcast. This is Gabriel Zolton-Johan.
Josh Burry.
And Ryan Stratton.
Signing
Bye,
off.
Ryan. We love you.
Love you, Mom.
And see you, viewers. We'll see you later. Cheers.
All right.